Maria Pakalwalahiatu, welcome to Talanoa Sao. My name is Elliot. It is my distinct pleasure to welcome you with us tonight. Tonight, we carry on our political series. So we've got a great chat to have. And without further ado, let me first bring in my co-host who's coming on board. This is Fuiawai Lili Ala Ilima. Fuiawai, talofa.
Malo soifua ia whatalofa atu pa ia malimamalu wa mwhainu whatasi le nei a fiafi. Ia o tato po kalame masani lava le nei po aso lua o le talanoa sao. Welcome and warm Pacific greetings to everyone. This is our usual and regular program that we have, Talanoa Sao, although tonight we will be having a special guest on. And so I'm going to hand it over to my dear brother, Elliot, to take care of some housekeeping. And then I guess we're going to continue on.
Awesome, absolutely. So, as per the way we do things, if you've got a discussion, if you've got a question, this is important. We want you to be part of Talanoa. You know how we roll. We roll Pacifica style. We roll New Zealand style, Kiwi style. So we want you to be part of the chat. So chuck in whatever you want to ask. Absolutely fine. Of course, there's a bit of decorum, Controversy, all good. Decorum, we need to make sure we keep some decorum at least. All right, so chuck it whatever you can, and we will do our absolute best in order to query that to our person who is our special guest. If you've got any issues, just to let you know, tonight we've actually had about 2 or 3 of our channels have been shut down temporarily. There was Facebook didn't really like something that was said by Mr. or Dr. Guy Hatchett, and so Mark Zuckerberg has decided to swipe something there. So at the moment we're on YouTube, we're on Facebook, we're on Twitter. If you happen to be one of our crew on Twitter, many apologies. You won't be able to ask your questions. You'll have to ask it on YouTube or Facebook. So that's us. Any sort of comments or questions that you want to bring it in. Absolutely fine. And we just want to do a massive shout out for those guys who still continue to support us. We love it. We thank you so much. Everything of what we get goes straight back into the program in order to bring the news that we need to have. So God bless you all. And for Abai, in the way that we should be doing, do you mind maybe just setting us off? This is Talanoa Sao, and in that we always do a bit of a lotu. Would you mind starting us off with a bit of prayer?
Sure, let's do that. Let us pray. Father God, we just want to praise and glorify your wonderful name. We just want to thank you for this opportunity for us to come together once again, my brother and I, and our special guest, as well as those who are listening and are part of our audience family. Lord, we just praise and glorify you because we know, Lord, that you're going to take care of us and you're going to help us. You're going to be with us and lead us in our conversation, our talanoa tonight. Lord, bless all those who are listening, even our sister who is not with us tonight, but we ask that you be with her and watch over everyone. And we just offer this program up to you in your son's holy and mighty name. We pray and ask. Amen.
Amen. Amen. So tonight we have a special guest, and Fuiawa, I would love for you to introduce her to us. And just to let you know, team, we've already had wonderful to see some of in there. Trish, good to see you there. Valerie, yep, kia ora. Oh, cold tauranga, very good, excellento. Karen, evening all, excellent. Hey, and Valerie, amen. Sick, yeah. So keep those questions coming. Even if it goes in the early part, we'll make sure we put them in somewhere. All right. So Fuiawa, who do we have in our green room? What's going on?
Okay. Well, first and foremost, I just want to give a little bit of an introduction to our upcoming guest. During COVID, the government accused those of us who disagreed with them of misinformation, especially our next guest. Our next guest is someone who, I think of that quote, when you're standing for truth, often it means that you're standing alone. However, it's our honor and privilege tonight to welcome on board to the Talanoa Sao program the emerging issues attorney, someone that you guys will all be familiar with, Sue Gray. Sue,
yay!
Welcome.
Woo!
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm so privileged to be on your show tonight. Thank you.
Awesome. Sue, would you be able to just give us a brief? Now, look, I think most of us know who you are, those who are watching now and those who will be watching in the future. But would you be able to just give a real brief bio of yourself and specifically what happened during the lockdowns and mandates?
That's right.
Yeah, sure. So I'm a mother. I'm a lawyer. I've got a background in science and biochemistry and microbiology. I was a health protection officer, and doing contact tracing was one of my early jobs. And in recent years, I've become a political leader for the first Outdoors and Freedom Party, and now for Freedoms NZ, I'm co-leader with Brian Tamaki. So when COVID struck, I was quite surprised because the government started telling us to do the opposite of what they told us to do when I was a health protection officer. And so, we were taught that if there's a pandemic, you must contain everybody and find out, don't spread them all out, keep them together, learn about what you're dealing with, and then you can make a good plan. But what happened with COVID, we hear about this terrible disease around the world, and the government's saying, quick, if you're in China, come back to New Zealand. So I'm saying, hang on, why, if there's a big problem in one place, why would we want to spread it all around the world? So it was like really odd for me. And at the start, when they were showing us all these photos of people dropping in the streets and things, it looked like it might be really quite serious. They were talking about like 1 in 3 people that got it could be dying and hospitals overloaded and all these kind of things. And so we actually, as the Outdoors and Freedom Party, actually put out a press release saying, close the borders, contain the problem in China, don't bring the problem back to New Zealand. Let's learn about it more first. That's where we started. So yes, but then after a few weeks, and we got more information, and we found out that actually the doctors had good early treatment protocols and ways of managing it, and actually you didn't need ventilators and all of these things. It seemed like the problem wasn't nearly as bad as what they'd originally feared, and that's great. So we were then like, okay, you don't need to worry about this. It's just like another thing that's
cold.
Yeah, the flu, a cold with a little spike, but that maybe is a little bit worse than a normal cold, perhaps. But yeah, there's no drama here. But by the time we got to that, the government had gone the opposite. It's like, close the borders, stay home, be safe, all these little slogans they kept coming up with. And, again, it was the opposite of what I'd been taught with all my public health training, which was, get out in the sunshine, get fresh air, have healthy food. Like, how many times did we hear them talking about healthy food? Like, never. Vitamin C, vitamin D, all the things that everybody kind of knows, food is thy medicine. We didn't hear any of those things. All we heard was, be very afraid. Don't talk to people. Don't talk to your neighbors. And so it was really odd, So I was quite on red alert right from the start, thinking something really strange is going on here. And then, sort of got a little bit used to being home for a few days, and then you get a little bit bored being home, and you want to get out there and catch up with your family. My parents lived down the road, and my youngest daughter was still living home with me at school. And you want to, and I started looking at the law, and I started going, hang on, but they're telling us all these things, but this is not what the law says. Why would they be telling us to do things that is different than what the law is saying? It doesn't say in the law that you can't go swimming, or you can't go to the beach, or you can't go out. So, the whole way through it was really weird. So I actually decided that, my way of relaxing is I get out there on the paddleboard in the ocean, just in the shallow water, nothing dramatic, not like you have in the beautiful Pacific Islands, just in the kind of local inshore water, and just do a bit of thinking. That's where I guess a kind of meditation. And I was really frustrated because I couldn't go and do that. So again, I had another look at the law, and I went, well, actually they can't. This is a made up restriction. There's nothing in the law that says we can't go out swimming or boating or kayaking or paddleboarding. So I actually wrote a letter to the Prime Minister and to the Attorney General, who's the government's chief lawyer, and to the local police commissioner in charge of the Nelson Police. And I said, look, actually, I think you guys are misreading the law. It doesn't say what you say. And I'm going to go paddleboarding. And if you think I'm wrong, tell me now, but otherwise I'm going. So I left it a couple of days, and it was a beautiful, calm, sunny day. And I printed out all my documents, all my law, and I put it in a plastic bag, and I took it paddleboarding with me. And, that was really a big change for me to say what is going on here. But we can't just put up with this loss of our freedoms. We've actually got to question these things, ask questions, and challenge the situation. And really, my whole COVID career went from there. Yeah.
I wanted to ask you this question, Sue, because tell me if this makes sense to you, because I know that you were lambasted during that time of COVID. They were saying that you were like chief among the spreaders of misinformation. Mm-hmm. And if this was in articles across the media, the mainstream media, stuff, News Hub, and speaking of News Hub, they also put out an article on the 17th of November 2021, where they said that New Zealand's 2020 lockdown prevented 32,000 COVID-19 deaths and nearly 2 million infections, according to a study. Now, this is the same government that spoke to us about the fact that thousands would die in New Zealand. The vaccine is 95% effective. The vaccine will stop transmissions. The vaccine will keep you out of the hospital. They also said that a man shot in the head died of COVID. Yeah. They also said that vaccinations will not be mandatory. And then they switched back on us. They also said masking would stop transmissions. And then they also said that the pandemic would be that of the unvaccinated. I'm just wondering, what are your views regarding the fact that this is the information that the government is presenting, and then they're labeling you as misinformation, even though it's been proven that everything that they said that I mentioned on this list has been proven to be inaccurate and incorrect?
Yeah, look, it's been a really shocking time in terms of trust in government and trust in the media. What has happened, and I've done a fair bit of research into this. The government has funded the media as long as the media runs the government narrative. So mainstream media is no longer about truth. Mainstream media is now just all about pushing the government's propaganda and about spreading, gaslighting, spreading misinformation and defaming people, not just myself, but a lot of the doctors that have asked questions and pretty much anybody who asks questions. And it just seems to be going on and on. I mean, I guess they've dug themselves into such a big hole that they can't really see a way out of it anymore. They could be honest and confess that they got it wrong. That would be a really good start, but they don't seem to be doing showing any sign of that, unfortunately.
Yeah, the question also is around the mandates, because my understanding is that there are still some mandates out there. Okay, I think we know where we're placed, and I think all of our audience does hold you quite high in regard and respect because of that. Fast forward, a lot of things happened. The Wellington protests happened. The people of New Zealand nearly rose up over the whole thing. That went calm down a bit, and now, of course, we're in a new campaign, And a lot of Kiwis still recall the pain of the lockdowns, the mandates, the suicides, the having to watch funerals from the side of the road, all of that horrific stuff that the government did. You've joined with Freedoms NZ. So now you are, I believe, co-leader with Brian Tamaki. Is that correct?
Yes, that's right. Yep.
So, and it's an umbrella. So there are some parties who are in amongst that. Could you tell us a little bit about Freedoms NZ? What is the main stance of it, and perhaps a bit of the makeup of it, if you could?
Yeah, sure. So Freedoms NZ really started from the Freedom and Rights Coalition, who ran a lot of the really big protests in 2021. And so, yeah, during that second lot of lockdowns, I think, the first lot of lockdowns, people were like, okay, fine, if we have to do it, we have to do it. But then it was obvious that this was going to go on forever. Like, how does New Zealand keep COVID out of the country forever? We either become a desert island forever and disconnect with the rest of the world, or we have to reconnect. And then, of course, you have to run the risk of whatever risks might there be. So, it was obvious that there was no exit strategy from a course that the government had adopted, or at least not a good exit strategy. So, a lot of people became asking more and more questions as best as we could. And especially with the mandates, like, since when did you have to have an injection with an experimental substance that hadn't finished its clinical trials before you were allowed to go to work? Like, this for me is so contrary to human rights. So a lot of us found each other at various events around New Zealand. Outdoors and Freedom Party, we were actually out there. We did what's called a walk, talk and chalk tour of New Zealand after that first lot of lockdowns in 2020. And then we started meeting a few of the other people that were kind of sharing our views and building up little networks. And then we connected up with Brian and the Freedom and Rights Coalition probably in, I don't know, mid-2021 maybe, and got invited to, I spoke at one of those big events in Wellington in maybe about October 2021. A lot of people went to that. It was huge. And then again in obviously the Freedom Village in 2022 at Parliament, there were a lot of people there, and I was one of the people. I wasn't even going to join the convoy, actually. I didn't even really know about it because there's always so many things happening, and then heard about it. It's like, well, let's go and have a look. And I was in near Taupo at the time, and this was like amazing. I don't know if you saw it or were there, but I'd never seen anything like it. All of these people just coming together and celebrating that finally we were doing something. And so we just joined into the convoy. Like, we weren't even really planning to go, but we just joined in. And before we knew it, we were down in Palmerston North and then down in Wellington and pretty much stayed the whole time, apart from a few days when we had to go to another hui up north. So, but out of all that, lots of people started to get to know each other a bit better, you kind of found out who had what skills, and the Freedom and Rights guys were always there, organizing the stage, organizing the entertainment, organizing the crowds. And so we got to know them. I got to know them really well. And then that came to that horrible end when the police basically attacked everybody, including Alan, my co-leader. And the police assaulted him at like 6:15 in the morning on that last morning when they came down the street. He was just videoing what was happening, getting some evidence, and they assaulted him with a big shield, and he got a fractured hip. So he spent a week in hospital after that, getting an emergency hip replacement operation. And, it's been a long, long saga for us. But anyway, he's pretty determined, and he fought back from that. And so then the next thing was the Tauranga by-election. And that came up in about, I think, June, or it was announced it was going to be in July 2022. So I decided to stand as a candidate for the Outdoors and Freedom Party. And then we had another whole range of problems because the establishment only would let ACT, Labour and National candidates go to the meetings. How can you have a political meeting with only some of the contenders and everybody else is banned? Like, there's so many challenges. And Brian came along with the Freedom and Rights Coalition and organised some events for the other parties that weren't invited to the big political meetings. The funny thing is we ended up having way bigger political meetings than the big parties had, because Brian and the Freedom and Rights guys are amazing at organizing events. I mean, they organize great events, and we had these 2 events, and what came out of it is the audience were always asking, why can't all the freedom parties work together? And which is a really good question, because I ask myself the same question. You know, when the government's always trying to divide us, our challenge is to find ways to work together, because that's what we need to do to overcome, as the antidote to their kind of division. So out of all that, you know, again, it was great that I had a good campaign in Tauranga with the help of Freedom and Rights Coalition. I got almost 5% of the vote, for like 4.96%. So we knew that we could get really substantial support. And that was just, I wasn't even from Tauranga. I mean, I'm from the South Island. I'm from Nelson. But, you know, people understood the importance of the freedom vote. So yeah, we just kind of stayed on and off in touch. And then they started up their political party. We've been talking to them for a year or so, really, about possibilities. And then a few months ago, we said, hey, look, let's work together. Let's do this. And out of that, we've got a beautiful way of doing it, we believe, where the Freedoms New Zealand is an umbrella. And so under the umbrella, each of the parties can keep their own integrity. They keep their own policies, but we just agree on the main things. We just agree on freedoms, on family, and on basically future of New Zealand, like some key issues that everyone would agree on anyway, I think, because they're just so obvious. Well, everyone that knows that a woman is a woman and a man is a man would probably agree on these things, right? Everyone that wants their kids to be able to grow up as kids without being indoctrinated at school, like all of these kind of really common sense, basic things that real people want.
Right. So that, I mean, that does sound like a good little segue element. So your definition of a woman is a human adult female. Am I hearing that correct?
Yeah. Born a woman,
awesome.
Stay a woman.
Awesome. Because there has been, of course, as per normal, there has been some controversy, and you know, it is a bit hard when you've got Democracy NZ, then you've got Freedoms New Zealand, then you've got Leighton Baker Party, then you've got the Liz Gunn.
Yeah.
A New Zealand Loyal, I think it is.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts in terms of these new parties that have really been sprouting up? Have you been discussing this? Have you had communications or discussions with these other groups?
Yeah, look, I've been talking to everybody that I knew that was interested in politics for years. Like ever since I got involved, I've always been talking to the smaller parties and as many people as I could talk to. And we had some talks actually before the last election to try and bring everybody together. Didn't work for a few various reasons. Then we've had talks even after the last election. We've had so many meetings, one-on-one or a group together or a Zoom call, so many times. And we actually thought we were really making some good progress with Freedoms NZ and getting all of the main groups lined up. And then these other guys spring up. And it's like, why would you do that? Why would you not come and talk to people that are already doing it? Why would you confuse the freedom vote? And I understand people have their own issues, their own things that have happened to them in the past, things that they're a bit scared of, whatever. But really, if you're looking at the big picture, of what is good for the future of New Zealand and the future of our children, we must be able to work together. We must be able to. So we are trying. I mean, I've worked with Liz on the Baby W case. You know, we were working together really closely for a couple of weeks, just every day, constantly talking. And I've worked with Leighton on and off with different issues. I mean, he was at Parliament for much of Parliament, and we talked quite often. And I met Leighton I went down and saw him actually in February. I went up to Waitangi and I had a lot of meetings up north. And then I said, right, I'm going to go around the South Island now. I'm going to talk to everybody in the South Island and see how we can pull things together. And I had a great meeting with Leighton and his wife, Sue. And we talked and we agreed on everything. And I said, look, this is awesome. We're like so much in agreement. Now let's all pull together and work together. And he's like, well, no. And so this is the bit that I really don't understand, when we agree on so much, but we can't agree to work together. But what I'm really hoping is, now that he's kind of had a little try and he's realized that there's a lot of all the logistics of setting up a party, there's a lot to it. Like, it's a lot harder than it sounds. You've got to meet all the legal requirements. You've got to do web pages and technology. You've got to organize candidates. You've got to do so many things that it just makes so much more sense to work together, and we can all specialize in what we're best at and not all try and reinvent the wheel. So I'm really, really, really hoping that, I've got ongoing messages out to him. When we went and spoke for Freedom NZ, I said, come along to our meetings. He said he couldn't come because he had something on that day. I'm really hoping that he'll have another think and he'll come back and work with us.
Right, awesome. So this is, Valerie's actually asked a very, very good question, and this is, of course, subject to you've sort of already answered it. You don't know, but perhaps I'm just wondering what are the reasons? Because Valerie's asked a question, and there has it now, and I'll follow that up with your thoughts or your opinion on something else as well that we've discussed quite a bit in terms of the freedom community groups that are already really out there. So, but first off, do you have a thought as to the reasons why they aren't joining together? Is there a reason that you have?
Yeah, look, I think there's a few different reasons for different people. I think in some cases they're really more like controlled opposition, and they've been set up really to support, say, for example, the National Party, and they are trying to take a share of the freedom vote. But they know that the freedom voters are never going to vote for the National Party, of course, because we were the National Party when we were when we needed them.
That's right.
When we went to Wellington and we said, please come and talk to us, they were nowhere to be seen. So nobody from the freedom community is going to vote for the National Party. So what they do is they find somebody that they think might be palatable to the freedom community, and they set them up with a party and a party infrastructure. And then they basically do a deal with them that they will definitely work with the National Party. So somebody in that situation doesn't really want to work with the rest of us who are really there to be a more of an independent voice for freedom. So that's really fair to say one of the parties is in that position. I think another person is in a position where he's been hurt. He's been hurt badly by a breakdown relationship with a former party that he was in, and he's scared to put himself into that situation again. And it's a bit of a leap of trust to overcome that and to step forward and join another party. And for me, that's really sad, because you can't judge the future by what happened in the past. You can learn from the past, but you've still, if you're really there for the freedom community, you've got to be brave, and you've just got to say, look, let's make it work.
And I think also politics the game of politics is one where man, you look at Donald Trump, who stabs you in the back yesterday could actually be your greatest friend today.
That's right.
It is. It's brutal. I never had any idea how nasty it would be sometimes on social media and politics, and people that should be working together are fighting each other. Look, let's fight the common enemy, who are the globalists. Let's fight each other. Let's work together.
So Wally's brought up a very good point, and this has been something that we have discussed on the show from time to time. We've brought it up to different parties as well, and so we'll ask you for your take. Wally's saying, what do you think of the group called Voters United, who are not a political party, but are there to provide a polling service for the freedom voter, which is I think quite accurate. They've really been working at getting those polls around for different people and around the freedom community-based groups. They seem to be suggesting a style of primaries, similar to the US primaries, where basically they're going to set up a voting poll system, time of vote, and then if it's agreeable, then everyone votes for en masse for one particular freedom-based political party. What are your thoughts on that, on a style of primaries in through that? Because of course the freedom vote is a massive, it's downplayed heavily, but it's actually a massive voting block. So what are your thoughts on that, Sue?
Yeah. I think it's a good idea. But my first choice is we have such a massive challenge ahead of us that we all should be coming together, because it's going to take all of us, or most of us, to challenge what's going on in the government. And everyone's got their own skills, their own life experience and expertise to bring to the table. So the more of us that can work together, the better. If we really, really can't work together, then that's a plan B. And I think it's useful just for raising awareness of the parties and asking questions and getting people thinking about things and that sort of thing. But why would you just choose one part of everything instead of choosing the best of everything and bringing the best together? And my second concern with what they're doing is they're bringing in, well, first of all, some parties that aren't registered yet. And we don't know if those parties are going to get registered before the election. It's quite difficult to get a political party registered and to get people's hopes up that they're going to vote for this magical party that's going to jump in right at the end and save the day is a pretty high risk strategy for me. We have to be careful, because there are the people that are really into this and they know every nuance of every party and every change. But the average voter, they don't know.
So you're saying that, of course, no, if this polling team, there's no way they could be putting into place a party who is not actually an official party. They just can't do that. Doesn't make any sense whatsoever. Would that be? Forgive me, I don't know. Is that NZ Loyal? Is that the group that you're? Okay, well, fair. If they're not registered, they're not registered. They can't be in that sort of poll. I'm just trying to get what the main issue really is. Is it because you feel, or you and Brian, or you yourself feel that you're there to best represent the ideas of the freedom groups, or is it that everyone should still be sort of siloing their votes and voting for who they think in terms of values?
Okay, so my personal view is it's the responsibility of the freedom leaders to find a way to work together. And if any, and I believe that most of the freedom leaders are smart enough and they can put their own little personal issues aside, and they should be able to find a way to work together. And that way we get the best team together to represent, because it's a big task and we need the best team that we can get. And if we can do that, it's great. If we can't do that, then it is a problem. It is a problem, because nobody's going to get 5%. There's a few electorates that people may be able to win. I'm standing in West Coast Tasman, and I believe that is an electorate that is really over the political system at the moment. They've been really badly serviced by their own MP. I mean, I've been to Haast twice this year. It's a huge electorate. I've been Haast twice this year. Damien O'Connor, who's the MP, hasn't been there since 2013. So and Maureen Pugh, who's their national representative, gets told off if she says anything that her electorate asks her to talk about, because Christopher Luxon doesn't like her views or her electorate's views. So how can you represent an electorate when you're not allowed to say what the electorate want you to say? It's just ridiculous. Right. So there's a couple of electorates like that are potentially winnable if the community gets behind a freedom candidate, and so that's kind of a special situation. But otherwise, the likelihood of any of the smaller parties getting 5% by themselves is really small. And even if Voters United say, oh, well, let's all get behind party X, some people won't anyway, because they won't. And one of the parties they're promoting is Winston. Like, Winston was the guy that signed up to the cabinet paper that
That's
made
right.
the vaccine mandatory for New Zealand. He was the one saying this is the solution. Winston's co-leader was the education minister that signed up to the indoctrination program that is now all through our schools. Just in October 2021, Winston was the one that posted on Facebook saying we have to put pressure on the unvaccinated. They should
That's
lose their
right.
benefits if they don't get vaccinated. And then all of a sudden, Winston, as he often does, he sees a big bunch of people at Parliament and goes, oh, that might be 5% of the vote. I'll go and tell them what they want to hear, and I'll promise them all sorts of things. And suddenly people are saying, oh, Winston's a good option. But actually, people have to have a bit of a longer memory, because there's no point voting for a freedom leader who actually doesn't believe in freedom and who doesn't stand up for freedom when the public need freedom. I mean, so that's, that's a real risk. And people say, oh, well, he's got more chance of getting in. But what's the point of electing someone that isn't representing what you want?
Sue, can I just ask a quick question? I'm going to take my liberty with this particular question, just because I think I know something about what you and Brian have just been doing. I know that you guys had a live earlier today.
Mm-hmm.
Was that today?
We did. Yeah, we've done a couple. We did one last weekend, and we've done another one today.
And this one said signings on the caption of the video. And so I want to ask you if you could elaborate a little bit about what that was all about.
Yeah, sure. So we agreed in principle that we wanted to join Freedom NZ under the umbrella way back in May. And we agreed in principle how that would work. And then, it all happened quite quickly, because Brian and Hannah had just come back from a trip, and all sorts of things happened. And before we knew it, we were on the road show and touring around the country. And then we got a message from the Electoral Commission saying that if we joined, we would lose our electoral funding.
Oh.
And so you don't get, like, small parties don't get much broadcasting funding. And the way that it works in New Zealand, you're only allowed to advertise on TV and radio with the funding that they give you. So if they give you no funding, you can't advertise on TV or radio at all. And if they gave us 66,000 funding, and they gave Freedom NZ 66,000 to share between the parties that were already part of it, which was at that stage Vision and New Nation. But then they said if we joined, we'd lose our 66,000. So we decided to go to the High Court and challenge that, because we thought it wasn't fair. We thought the whole electoral system of funding wasn't fair, because Labour were going to get over 1.2 million. And the small parties got 66,000. So they're basically allocated based on the results of the last election. And we said, well, hang on, every election should be a fair, new, fresh election, not based on the last time. So I spent quite a bit of time urgently preparing that court application for us, while the rest of the team from Freedom NZ carried on doing their tour. And but what we told the Electoral Commission and the court was we didn't want to sign the agreement until we knew the outcome of that court decision, and we could make then an informed decision about what we did want to do and how we were going to proceed, and whether there was some possible middle ground somewhere. Could we get an agreement that our money would straight away transfer to Freedom's New Zealand or whatever. So we didn't sign, and then we got the decision, I guess it was about a week and a half ago now. And it was actually quite disappointing. The judge agreed that the allocation is really unfair, and that there's all sorts of problems with it, but she said it was for Parliament to fix, not for the court to fix. We're disappointed, because we think that the court could have fixed it, but anyway, the court didn't. So we're stuck with what we're stuck. So by then, we've spent so much time with Freedoms NZ that we've decided that even if we asked the Electoral Commission if because at some point, if you're a small party but you've got lots of smaller parties joining together, how do they decide whether you go to the next category and get more funding? They
Right.
said that they wouldn't tell us until after we joined. So, we thought they must have some criteria. They must say, okay, if you've got more than, 20,000 members between you or whatever, at some point you get more funding. But apparently not. Apparently they wait until you join and then they, I don't know, flip a coin or something and decide how they deal with it. I don't know. So anyway, in the end, we decided that, look, it's only money. The principle of the thing is more important, that we work together.
Right.
We walk the walk of unity, which is what we strongly believe is the future, that we find ways to bring everybody together, and we just have to work around the lack of funding for radio and television. So today we signed.
Oh, awesome.
Awesome.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Yeah,
Awesome.
it was really good. It was really good.
So can I ask now, so Freedoms NZ is, you've got the umbrella, and people, are you able to just briefly let us know about, have you got candidates for the outdoors party? What are probably your top two couple of policies that you've got going on? Or do you have policies at the moment, or are they in development?
Yeah, so the Outdoors and Freedom Party's got a lot of policies, because we actually wrote policies for the last election that we believe are still really, really good, strong freedom policies that still apply. And we've got a great health policy, which is on the basis of let's keep people healthy rather than let's fix sick people, which is the kind of pharmaceutical model. We've got education policies, again, like let's educate kids for life based on, life skills and learning self-sufficiency and how the economy works and all the kind of basic things that will help people with their lives, and connectedness to the environment, that sort of thing. We've got farming policies. We've got all sorts of policies already, and we've got it's all on our webpage, www.outdoorsparty.co.nz. But then we've also got the freedoms policies that have become, because of COVID, have become just so fundamental. I mean, who would have thought that we would have needed a policy to say that our fundamental rights and freedoms are to be protected?
Absolutely.
I mean, we would have just always thought that was a given.
Bill of Rights protects.
Yeah, we didn't need a policy for that, but actually we do. We do, and it's really important to us. So within the Freedoms New Zealand umbrella, that is one of the most important things, that we have to agree that our fundamental rights are protected, that we put New Zealand before the globalists. We get out of the World Economic Forum, like they can stop interfering in New Zealand. Let's make decisions that are good for New Zealanders. So all of those type of things are Freedoms NZ policies that, of course, the Outdoors and Freedom Party and Vision and Freedom and Rights Coalition, Freedoms NZ itself, and all of the groups that have signed up at Yes Aotearoa, Rock the Vote, Man Up, they all agreed to.
All right, awesome. Fair enough. Doug has brought out a question here, and I'm pretty sure we all know the answer to this, but what are your thoughts as to this one? He's asking, what are the chances of having the cases of vaccine injuries, etc., against our beloved leaders resolved before the elections?
Yeah.
What's your take?
The courts move pretty slowly. So I don't, unfortunately, think, I mean, we do have a few options. We have under accident compensation. Quite a few people are getting compensation. Like a lot of people didn't even know they could apply for compensation, but especially people with myocarditis, if they've got some medical support, they're at least getting some medical treatment covered by ACC, and their 80% of their loss of income covered by ACC. So if anybody's been vaccine injured, it's really important to get your doctor to help you apply to ACC, and at least it's something. The second thing we've got is Ali Cook, who's one of our board members and one of our top 3 candidates for the Outdoors and Freedom Party, which in the top 6 for the Freedoms NZ. She did that 24,000 people petition to Parliament asking for a Royal Commission of Inquiry into vaccine injuries. And she's been part of the documentary Silent No More, where the vaccine injured, they made their video documentary showing the problems. So that's happening, but that isn't, I doubt, going to happen before the election. I mean, they are stalling. So it's really going to be after the election. There are teams of people, volunteers, looking at possible actions against government officials. But, it's a big process, and that's not so much linked into the election.
So there has been a question that's sort of coming through the comments, and I believe that these are genuine. These are genuine because it's coming from different people, and I know a couple of these people. They are generally, and it does have something to say with what you mentioned. So feel free to answer it as you would like. Is there? The questions come up. Are you suggesting? Is there controlled opposition? Are you prepared to perhaps? And of course, I understand this is you're calling this out. Is there a group you think, or groups that you think might be controlled opposition or being acceptably run by proxy, perhaps by national?
Yeah, well, there's one party, the Democracy New Zealand Party, whose board members are also, or have been, National Party board members, and quite a number of their candidates left because they were really concerned that the board weren't being honest about who was controlling what and who was, what the rules were and who was charged and that sort of thing. So there is a real concern there. We've talked to Matt King quite a few times, and I've had a meeting with him, encouraged him to join and work with us, both before and after we joined Freedom NZ. And if he's genuinely wanting freedom, I don't understand why he wouldn't join. But that was before we knew about all of this membership with the National Party. When we learned about his relationship ongoing, we knew that he'd formerly been a candidate who'd lost in the 2020 election. He'd lost his seat, and he'd hoped to get back and be re-elected. But we didn't know that his new board were so heavily influenced by the National Party. But it now makes much more sense to me that if he doesn't want to work with us, it's because he's already got this other arrangement, and he's publicly announced it on many occasions that he is already going to do a deal. He's done a deal with the National Party. So he's not, it's not to say that he's not more concerned about the freedoms issues than the average National Party members, but I think it's a little bit unrealistic if you've already done a deal to then believe that you're really going to make a big influence in changing the National Party policy when they're run basically by the same World Economic Forum globalist agenda that Labour are run by.
Right.
Interesting. Fuyama, did you have something there?
Yeah, I was just wondering because I know that you had who is it that's the leader of the New Conservative Party now?
Helen Houghton.
You said you had Helen on, and Helen was asked about whether they would be willing to work with anyone, and the only group that they mentioned that they would not be willing to work with was Freedoms New Zealand. Now, do you have any comment regarding that?
No, well, a little bit. I don't know. She's never told us why she will or wouldn't work with us. But we've spoken to the New Conservative Party, lots of the different people before we joined Freedoms NZ, and they didn't want to work with us either then. So I don't think that they're really very keen to work with us. We tried to work in a limited way in one by-election in Hamilton, but that was really quite difficult. It's I don't know. I just hope that she'll reconsider, because it's a real problem for New Conservative now. I think when Elliot and Leighton were leaders, and you put forward a really good show for the last election, and it was disappointing, the results. But since you've left, I think the profile has actually gone down a lot for New Conservative. So I would have thought that the best thing New Conservative could do would be to team up with some more people that can raise their profile again. Obviously that's a strategy for them to choose. I know that a lot of their board members and their deputy leader is much more keen on working with others, but their leader isn't, and she seems to have a lot of influence. But, if she changes her mind and she wants to come and talk, we're really, really happy to talk to her.
Awesome. Sue, I can see that Sue's actually had a very busy day, and so she is a little bit tired, and we do really appreciate you coming on to have a chat. I do have one. I've probably got one more question before I want you to just give us your elevator pitch, and it is a question because in talanoa Sa'o, many of us do tend to be people of faith, specifically the Christian faith. A couple of us have a different faith. So it is a question that we do get asked to ask also those who come onto our show. That is, one of the questions that does seem to be avoided is abortion. Are you able just to tell us your position on abortion? And is the current law okay? Should we have gone back to the old one? Should it be Harvey Bill? What are your thoughts on abortion in New Zealand?
Well, the current law is horrible, and I can't imagine anybody supporting the current law. I mean, it's cruel and it's just inhumane. So we're totally opposed to that. Before the current law, we had no agreed policy in our party on abortion. It was a conscience vote for each of our candidates. But all of our party we're all opposed to that change that Jacinda made before, that's just brutal. But just within exactly what it should be, that's a conscience vote for our party.
Oh, no, awesome. Thank you so much. See, Sue, thank you so much for being on our show. We want to give you the elevator pitch. Please tell us, why should people be voting for Outdoors? Why should people be voting for Freedoms NZ? And we'd just love to hear from you, especially that.
Okay, thank you. Well, party vote Freedoms New Zealand. And the reason is that our future, our lifestyle, our children's opportunities, the whole future of New Zealand absolutely depends on a principled party getting elected into Parliament that's got a track record of standing up against abuse of power, standing up and asking the hard questions, challenging everything. Our leaders in Freedoms New Zealand have literally been to jail for standing up for the rights of freedoms. We're not afraid of this system. We will do whatever it takes in a lawful, peaceful way to stand up for our rights. And if we get knocked back, we stand up again. And if we get knocked back again, we stand up again. Yesterday, I was in the disciplinary tribunal for the New Zealand Law Society because some people complained that I'd shared disinformation. And we had a very good hearing. We haven't got a decision yet, but the whole principle of the hearing was, what are the rights of New Zealanders to speak out and challenge the government? Yeah. So we stand up for this at every opportunity. And that is what we need. We need people representing the people who truly are there for the people, who are not career politicians, who are not indebted to some overseas organization or some multinational corporation. We just need everyday common sense, decent New Zealanders who can work together to create and inspire everybody else to create a good future for all of us. So, together we're better.
Yes.
There we go. All right. Well, thank you so much, Sue. Thank you so much.
Sue.
Thank you.
And just thank you to our audience out there. Thank you so much for your questions, your queries. We love to do this. We love to give people a platform to be able to speak. Yes. And this is where it gets the rambunctious stuff. So, have a chat, disagree, agree, and have a good bish bash over the whole thing. So until next time, just from all of us, we also thank you so much. Thank you so much, Sue. God bless you all out there, and we'll see you again real soon. All right.
Thank you.
Bye.